Is this on? Yes? You did good. I'd like to begin by welcoming everyone here. You know that this year is kind of a maiden voyage because we're going to do 3 of these candidate forums. And this is number 1 in District 2. And we're delighted to see such a crowd. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay. I'm going to read the instructions because I want there to be no misunderstanding about the protocol of tonight. The candidates have already been given this, but you don't know it. So let's charge forward. Each candidate will have 3-minute introduction. Each question asked tonight will also need to be answered in 3-minute increments. Our timer, right here in the front row, Danny, will hold up a card. The yellow card indicates that the candidate has 30 seconds. 3 seconds? No, green and color. Oh, the color. Excuse me. That's green. Okay. And when he turns it over, it's orange, and that means stop. All right? Okay. And let's see, that's all of that. Now, no questions will be accepted after the last candidate has introduced himself or herself. If you have a question, right now is the perfect time to go back up those stairs and write your question and put it in the box. Because once this introduction starts, that's the end of that, okay? And representatives from West Covina Improvement Association are out there to help you with that. And I would like at this time to introduce our moderator, Dr. David Speak, who is a professor at Cal Poly. And Danny Roman, you're already met.
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is a point of order. Dr. Rubio is going to have a town hall format involve heart.
No, we're not changing our format, Robert. No, the moderator will be in charge. Thank you.
Well, the moderator is in charge of the That's my suggestion.
Folks. I tried to turn the mic on. It was not up to the simple task of pressing the button once. Usually, I serve in the statewide Senate for the California State University system, and there is a button in front that says speak. But, oh, folks, my last name is Speak. I'm dealing with that kind of stuff all the time. At any rate, first, I'm a Claremonter. I've run for office. I served on the Claremont School Board for a time, a long time ago. I teach political science. I teach public law and political theory courses, and we have a master's in public administration program. I teach in the ethics. I teach the ethics course and the administrative law course. The one thing that you should know is that I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't have a pony in this race. So if I get a strange itch, it doesn't mean anything more than that I've got a strange itch. It is really, really important in circumstances like this, because these are high-stakes circumstances, that we be extra careful about observing impartiality and fairness across the board and in every moment of the evening. It's a wonderful thing to see folks out here. I'm very much in favor of local government and participation in local government, so the very fact that you're here warms the cockles of my heart. The other thing I have to say right now is a disclaimer. I am not responsible for the questions. I will read the questions that have been screened on my left. Each candidate will respond to those questions, and I've been given permission to be very strict about time limits. Time limits are very, very carefully controlled in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. There was a Chief Justice once who was reported to have interrupted someone in the middle of an and. I will do that, and I will do that not because of any attempt to try to frustrate an answer, but simply to keep the 3-minute time limit across the board for everyone. So the candidates are going to be very sensitive to the timekeeper, and when the red thing goes up, they need to finish, or I will finish for them. So we start the evening with 3-minute introductions. We're doing this alphabetically, then we will rotate the answers to the questions. So we'll start on this end of the podium, my left, your right. Do 3-minute introductions. Again, if you have any questions, you need to get them in now because we are not accepting any more questions after the introductions. That's necessary in order to do the sorting that we have to do. And I'm confident that this can be the best example of what's really important about local government, and that is it gives us all a chance to listen and to try to understand and to move forward with an important thing like a vote in terms of gathered information instead of all the other emotional bases that might happen. So we'll start the candidates with their 3-minute introductions.
Hello. Okay. Well, good evening to everyone who's here today and watching online on YouTube. My name is Brian Gutierrez, and I am 28 years old, and I'm running for the West Covina City Council. I grew up in West Covina. At the age of 12 years old, I moved to West Covina grew up in the foster care system and eventually moved to West Covina so my adoption could go through. I'm also, growing up in West Covina, I also had autism, Asperger's. I went to Nogales High School, and I'm a graduate of the class of 2008. As a high school student, my aunt who had adopted me was very cautious about me playing sports and other activities, so I raised over $100,000 for after-school programs for Nogales High School for my friends and peers who couldn't afford it. At the conclusion of graduating from Nogales High School, I eventually interned for many people, and I eventually, at age 22, I was appointed by Governor Jerry Brown as a state council member for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, which was an advocate for people with mental health issues. And if I am elected to the West Covina City Council, I will be a person who could solve the homeless issue in our city because I have the background and experience dealing with issues with mental health. Eventually, at age 24, I started working as the Executive Vice President of External Affairs for Dow Records with Sony Latin Music US. And since that time, I have given hundreds and thousands of dollars back to our city by supporting annually the Shop with the Cop program with the West Covina Police Department. And I will continue to support and advocate for change in West Covina. I'm a believer that all people are created equally, that we have the power to make a change, that regardless of where one person comes from in life, the life is not measured by a person's salary or the number of trophies a person has, but by the challenges overcome and appreciation for life. If I am elected and given the honor by the people, I will be an advocate for the people and make sure that we hire more police officers and more fire services in our city. And most importantly, stand up for what's right, as I learned while growing up in the city of West Covina. And thank you for your time.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank the the West Covina Home Improvement Association, or West Covina Improvement Association, for putting this together. Thank you to all the volunteers that came together, because these matters and these get-togethers in the community, they don't happen by themselves. They take a lot of hard work. I want to reintroduce myself to those that don't know me. My name is Roger Hernandez, your former councilman and your former mayor here in West Covina. I also had the distinct honor of serving as your California State Assembly member. I, like Brian, grew up in West Covina, and my family has been living here since 1986. That's when we moved in. I was the age 11 at the time. I've been a resident of West Covina for the most part ever since. There was a 6-year stint living up north, back and forth of West Covina. But I want to tell you, I'm running for the West Covina City Council because I care deeply about where West Covina is going, and at times where it's not going economically. When I served on the West Covina City Council, it was a time where we had a budget that that had an ebb and flow. We had times where city management would approach and say, Council, we need you to support budget reductions. And when those budget reductions put a threat to public safety, a potential reduction in police officers and firefighters, I voted against those kinds of efforts. Moreover, I was one that wanted to seek the input of all stakeholders that work here in the city, those that provide a service to the public. I'm very proud of the work that I did as a West Covina City Council member. As many of you drive around town, you see West Covina ambulances moving and navigating through the town. That was a solution to a budget deficit, and it was a positive one that brought public value. How so? It reduced emergency response time for West Covina residents from 8 minutes down to 3.5 minutes, and it avoided a $1.2 million budget cut, because we generated now well over, and it's still happening today, well over $2.2 million annually. That's the kind of approach that we need to have from all our elected leaders. We need to have solutions. It's always easier to do a budget cut. That's the easiest thing you could do. It doesn't require creativity. It's just cut. But I think that this time we need council leadership that is going to push the envelope on creativity, innovation, and find the kinds of partnerships and tap into West Covina's true potential to maximize its economic viability, and to have honest conversations with the people of West Covina about where the city lies. How much time do I have left, Brian? 20 seconds. Thank you very much. And with that, with the last 20 seconds, I want to say I'm open to any question. I want to answer all questions. As many of you know, I was very supportive of the audit that took place here in West Covina. I took that audit as your state lawmaker, and the recommendation that was left with that was that when we found out the $14 million of mismanagement, that we need to do something about it. And thank you. I'll respect that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, West Covina Improvement Association, for putting this together, and thank you for the residents who are here tonight and those who are watching. Your time is valuable, and I do appreciate that. My name is Letty Lopez. I'm your current Community and Senior Service Commissioner, and I am a proud homeowner here in West Covina. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 kids, born and raised here, and as for my education, I do hold a master's degree. I've worked in community services for over 18 years. I've worked at City of Monrovia, Pasadena, San Marino, and currently as a senior director with the City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks. I've worked with all types of people, from the young as a preschool teacher to our seniors, partnering up with the Department of Aging. I've worked at high-income areas to very low-income challenging areas. I would work long hours for a gang prevention program. I see how our city's rapidly approaching a crossroad, and this election is about which road we are going to take, and that's why I'm actually running. I'm a person who acts upon and not just complain. You've seen me out there. I have a clean record, excellent credit score, and strong family values, and I'm able to manage my own household. I've improved communities where I've worked at, and I want to do the same in the community where I reside in. I've worked within budgets. When I had little to no budget, when they give me nothing at work, I'm able to work with those things. I was able to be creative by partnering with outside organizations. I'm a hands-on person. I'm always in the trenches. I share the same struggles as our residents, so I understand and I can relate to you in many levels. I do want to ensure our parks and streets are clean and safe by increasing our police and firefighters so that they could protect our neighborhoods. That holds dear to me. I would like to help our current businesses grow while attracting new businesses to bring in extra revenue, along with controlling our budget by preventing wasteful spending. Most of all, I'd like to increase transparency and provide residents the opportunity to become involved. And I'm starting that, and I want to build a strong West Covina community. Thank you.
Good evening. I was born in Los Angeles, educated at Covina schools. I graduated with 2 Bachelor of Science, Economics, and Chemistry degrees from Cal Poly Pomona. 24 years I was an elected San Gabriel Valley Water District board member. The district had a $22 million in reserves as I left in 2012. Now less than half of that amount remains. For years, West Covina's suffered from fiscal permissiveness. If you had voted for me years ago, I doubt we'd see the current fiscal emergency. I was waterboarding then, unavailable. City management needs to be better, and many unaffordable labor agreements with the 9 bargaining units could be avoided in the future. My candidacy is dedicated to fix the severe budget emergency and reduce chronic, specific, corrupt practices of current City Hall government, establishing better ethical guidelines. Please, I urge you to pay attention to the local ballot clerk treasurer appointment measure, vote no arguments. That's a $95,000 election, according to county election officials, costs that this city cannot afford. An elected city clerk is an important factor in maintaining checks and balances in local government, especially now in challenging times. Safeguards maintain a corrupt-free safety net. Appointments are a bad idea. Residents need a clerk treasurer that is elected and accountable to them. Appointments are accountable only to the city manager. Why concentrate all the power with the administration? Please do not vote away your precious right to vote for city clerk treasurer. Once gone, your rights won't return. My own candidacy in this election was compromised by the city clerk's office when my candidacy statement was rejected for style and formatting mistakes, largely irrelevant deficiencies like double spacing, a suppression of political speech which would have allowed voters to read about my proposed solutions to our city problems prior to the election is serious. I have copies. Oh, I can go. But city clerk and city employees are not supposed to decide election. Rather, polling places must decide elections. These possibly corrupt irregularities could decide this election, and I'm eager to submit this matter to the state AG's office, Attorney General's office, after the election for their investigation. Stop, he said.
I'm Mike Spence, and I'm a current city council member. West Covina is a special place to me. I was born here. I'm one of, there's only one other council member that was born here that got to serve on the city council. And it's kind of cool to be on the city council at your hometown. This is the first election that we're having districts. And I'll be quite honest with you, I don't like districts. I don't like them at all. You know, there's people that said you can only be represented by people in an area that you lived, and that's all they cared about. I never believed that about West Covina. And in fact, my area, where I got elected, hadn't had a council member represented from that area for over 20 years. And I never felt unrepresented. And I resent the fact that we actually do this today, that we're only going to have a limited amount of people that are going to be voting here, and we'll never have a debate with all the council members together about the future of West Covina, about what we're going to be doing as a city as a whole. It's all going to be about districts. And this district is very important to me. I mean, I learned to swim in this district. I went to school in this district, graduated from high school in this district. I know this district. I used to ride my bike to Walmarado Park, which is in my district. I currently live over there now. I chose to buy a house and raise my family here in West Covina. And, you know, I've been about West Covina. That's what I do. That's what I care about. And I'm passionate about West Covina. And I'll tell you, I'm not wired like everybody else. I'll be honest with you. If you want someone that's going to be perfect and, you know, give trigger warnings and all that kind of stuff, I'm not that kind of guy. What I like to do, and if it's necessary, I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to stand up, even if I'm the only one, and say, this is wrong. We can't do this. You don't understand what the impact of your public policy is going to do. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at understanding public policy, and I'm good at how that operates. I've been chief of staff to 2 legislators and county supervisor. I got appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly to the California Library Board. I've had all kinds of titles and all kinds of things that, you know, really don't matter except an obituary. And so, but what's more important are the things that I feel that have been very important to me that I've been able to be part of. I was elected to the West Covina School District. I was on it for a long time, 22 years. Towards the end, I told people I was officially part of the problem, you know, and if there was something at the school they didn't like, I probably did it. But, you know, we did some great things there, because when I got elected, the district was bankrupt. We had a state loan. We had a state overseer that was directing things. And during the course, we managed to pay off that loan early. We're fiscally sound. The school district is fiscally sound now. We grew schools. We opened charter schools when they were a new thing. We were able to reopen Edgewood High School. Those were important things that we did. So I ran for council, and of course I was on council. I'm proud of some of the things we've done. We haven't always agreed as a council, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's the kind of diversity we need, is different people thinking different perspectives. But you know, we did agree on some things. We agreed to start dealing with homelessness in the parks a few years ago, and that's why we have the Hope Bicycle Team here. We were able to close down the wash that had attracted encampments that the county operated. We hired a new police chief from West Covina. We did a lot of good things, and that's important to me, and I hope it's important to you, and I ask for your vote.
Thanks. Okay, so now all the questions are in. I've been handed questions. Again, I'm not responsible for these. We're going to start with Mr. Gutierrez, and then on subsequent questions, we'll start with the next person in line. Each of you has heard the other candidates introduce and characterize themselves. This question is one which you could make more or less interesting. I'm asking you to make it more interesting. The question is, what makes you qualified to represent residents in District 2? I want you to think about what makes you uniquely qualified to represent residents in District 2, thinking about the other candidates at the forum tonight. So, Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you. I think what makes a person uniquely qualified to represent the people of West Covina, or specifically District Number 2, is someone who has a heart, the passion, and dedication to make a change in our city. We're facing major budget cuts. We're facing major issues in our city that are affecting our police and firefighters. We need to make a change in our city, and the only way we can make that change is by working together on making that change. I believe that I'm qualified because of my experience as a former appointed official of Governor Jerry Brown to the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I believe that my experiences growing up in the foster care system and having autism, Asperger's, makes me qualified because I know that the challenges people who are homeless face every day and who are dealing with mental health issues. I believe that me serving as a former National Finance Committee member for Secretary Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, my experience working with national leaders and in solving our homeless issue in West Covina by bringing in more leadership and demanding more funding to deal with the issue. And I believe that that's what makes me the most qualified, that I will be a passionate person that will fight for what's right, and I will be a voice for all West Covina. I don't believe that necessarily someone has to have a high college degree to be successful in representing the people. I believe that it takes someone who's passionate about fighting for what's right. So thank you.
Okay, my thinking is very clear about what makes me uniquely qualified to represent all of you in District 2 and all of you that live in West Covina in totality. When you make decisions as a member of a district, you're making decisions directly for all people of the community, not just the district that you were elected to represent. During my years of service in the West Covina City Council, my efforts were always to find creative ways of balancing the budget. We, working with colleagues, we were successful in balancing the budget by bringing in development, bringing in new development in the city of West Covina versus having to rely on budget reductions to balance the budget. When I was sent off to the California legislature, I was sent off in a very difficult time during the Great Recession, facing a $26 to $28 billion deficit, and we went to work right away. As your representative, I voted for the budget reductions that get us back into the black. And over the first 3 to 4 years in the legislature, we started restoring the services that were cut. And meanwhile, as a member of the legislature, I also asked you, as members of the public, along with the rest of California, to require of the people that we have an automatic mandatory rainy day fund. That is something that's critical if a city is going to be ready to support and brace itself for economic downturns. Moreover, this district is one that has a nice balance of residential, where we have the single family, we have the condos, we have the apartments here, but also the mix with the retail. That is something that to me needs to be looked at as a legislator, as a local legislator, in understanding that there has to be a nice balance in the way we approach new projects. There needs to be harmony in the way that we bring a project so that the residents aren't upset about what we're building, what we're bringing, that it's respectful to the existing residential housing stock and the families. A quick example, every time there were developments that were largely opposed by residents, and the room here, this chamber, would be filled by 200-300 people opposing whether it was a park sale for big development, or our condo developments that were going to be overlooking our ranch-style properties off of Sunset. I opposed because I was siding with the residents. I believe in respecting the residents' will and bringing projects that the residents want, and that strike that nice balance. Thank you.
Well, besides me living in District 2, I'm actually involved. Like I mentioned, I'm hands-on. Even during my door knocking, if there's interest, everybody has different interests, I'm there to help. I know we had one neighbor, he doesn't know how to use computers. He's had issues. There was a issue in regards to enforcement of his yard. He called it in for his backyard neighbor and gave the information, and miscommunication enforcement came to his place. So I actually took my time and helped him, took the pictures, put it in for him, and got that resolved. Like I said, I've worked with all types of people, all ages, different income levels, and I can relate to certain areas. I've grew up poor. I have different people that I worked with. Also, a common interest. People say sometimes, oh, don't talk to that person because, they're no good, or don't talk to that person. And the funny thing is, I'm willing to talk to everybody. I'm willing to listen to everybody because everybody has good things to share. And sometimes these two people may not like each other, but the common interest is me. And I'm able to help people see eye to eye and get people united. I'm hands-on, like I mentioned. I know with the homeless issue, some people would talk about certain groups, oh, this person at this bus stop, so forth, and very negative. I'll be the one to actually go there on my own and talk to the person. I know the one recently, we had Shirley, the one at the bus stop, and I went there on my own right after work. I stayed with her till almost 11 o'clock at night. I know my husband's like, what are you doing out there? And, I saw the other homeless comes by, the other one across, Ron. I'm there. I will, be there to listen, to get everyone together, united. I'm hands-on, I interact. I've partnered up with different organizations at work that I can implement here, that I can share my knowledge, and I'm willing to work with other organizations to get their feedback and to improve everything. I guess that's pretty much it. I don't have political aspirations. I'm doing this for you, and I love what I do. I've been in community services for over 18 years, and that's what I do. So thank you.
I too am sort of a public policy wonk. I agree with Mr. Spence, Councilman Spence, regarding districting, but a lawsuit made the change inevitable. We had to go there. I've dealt with annual budgets when I was on the water board annually for 24 years, and audits of our spending behavior. I've dealt with, we were sued many times. I've dealt with many CEQA lawsuits, environmental law. We were famously sued, the Upper District, by Miller's Brewery over our recycled toilet to tap, remember, water programs, water conservation. I'm an environmentalist and environmental chemist. I know more about CEQA than I've been working with the Mount SAC board over the CEQA issues and the parking structures and the bond issues and the CEQA issues there. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm sort of a CEQA wonk. I'm familiar with public emergency awareness and reactions. Incidentally, if we had an event on the San Andreas, I don't know. I don't think the industry where I came from was prepared for weeks-long water outages and electricity outages. I'm a little concerned about that, but I can't do anything with that on this West Covina City Council. But planning for public emergencies is no mystery to me. Local politics, I've dealt and testified at all levels of government, local to county, except for school boards. I've never really dealt with school board policies. But I'm aware of local politics and what it does to you. In politics, your friends and doing favor for your friends will get you in trouble. Your enemies are really your friends in local politics, because if they don't like you, they'll tell you what's wrong with you, and they are, sometimes it isn't very pretty, but in local politics, your enemy is your friend, and I'm used to that. I'm prepared to sit here and be criticized, and even personally from a public microphone. I've seen it happen at previous council meetings, but it's not about personalities. It's about 3 votes. If you can count to 3, you can make policy in West Covina. So I've got a red sign here.
Well, I think I already addressed that issue in some ways, and that I'm uniquely qualified because this is my life, is in this district. From going to school to living here now, West Covina values are my values. I remember those things, and that's what makes me a good advocate for the district and for West Covina. That's why when the council was passing the general plan that was allowing 3-story townhomes by right, 10 feet from single-story family homes, I pointed it out, and the council still approved it anyways, but I was relentless about it and kept bringing it up meeting after meeting after meeting, and now we're changing it. Because that was wrong to stick 3-story townhomes 10 feet from single-story homes. That's the wrong way to do development. It's the wrong way to do it. But it's because I know that and it's part of me, I'm willing to fight for it. That's why I was willing to fight the city when they wanted to do a tax increase and they didn't like my ballot argument in 1998. And they sued me personally. They said I was going to have to pay damages to them. And, I went to court with them and I won. And the tax failed. 2/3 of the people rejected the tax. And you guys, if you're a homeowner here, you're still saving hundreds of dollars every month because of that, every year because of that. And that's why I'm different. I'm passionate about West Covina because that is who I am. Those are my values. And I'm willing to fight for them and do whatever I need to do to fight for them. Thank you.
My mic. Okay, so the next question I am going to work on a little bit. First, I'm just going to say two words, BKK landfill. And then I'm going to ask each of you to tell us what you think should happen at that place, what you think the city's role should be, and most importantly, justify what you've described as the city's role and what you think should happen there in terms of there being a better West Covina 30 years from now. We'll start with Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I was involved with the development of the BKK property starting back from 2003. That project there was very interesting. I remember as a little boy, my neighbors talking about how one day the landfill would be a place where there would be golf courses, retail, and sports plexes. And to have had the honor to have been a part of that development at the BKK property is something that has given me a lot of a pleasure and just a distinct honor. I didn't support everything over there, though, however. I did support the retail development that was slated originally to be a Home Depot, Walmart project. I fought hard to make sure that we had some diversity on Azusa Boulevard, or Azusa Avenue, I meant to say. That project there ultimately ended up to be the Target Home Depot anchored project, but I didn't support the Big League Dreams project, and I'll tell you why. The Big League Dreams project does not pay for itself. It's a huge drain to the city of West Covina, so much so that it sucks away very necessary revenues and resources that we could be using to pay for our police and fire services at a better and more adequate level. And that's why I didn't support the Big League Dreams project. We call it a park, but it really is private companies' management of an operation there that when you think about a community park, you don't think about being charged multiple dollars to walk in. That's not, we are subsidizing a business there. So moving forward with the opportunity to do something better for the BKK property, I like to see that we do what the residents were asking us when I was on council, that we provide open space, the walking trails. I know that's a portion of some of the proposals that are coming forward now before the council. Additionally, I'd like to see us do just open passive space with the inclusion of soccer fields, and if we can afford it, and if we can attain the proper grants, an aquatic center there. I think that it needs to be a facility that's run by the city, that's fully owned by the city. It should not be a public-private partnership where the private partner ends up getting the bigger end of the stick at the taxpayer's expense. So we have space there to really enhance the quality of life for all West Covinians, but we got to do it in a way, again, where we're putting the residents of West Covina first, and we're thinking about the sustainability in the long term. Undoubtedly, there's going to be varying ideas about what we do with BKK, but undoubtedly, we also have folks that are suffering from diabetes and other health consequences, where we can continue to provide a greater level of amenities for folks to combat illness, have family togetherness in their community parks without being charged to walk into every time, I think is a win-win, and it's one that needs a lot of community participation. Thank you.
I've actually seen some of the two developments that were out there, and with each development there's pros and cons, things that I like and things that I don't like. I definitely would like to see something there. Something is needed for West Covina at the BKK landfill, and I look forward to any other proposals for other developments that would come in. I like to keep my options open, and I always like to involve the residents I do like to have the residents have a say. I don't want it to be like a closed deal. I don't want, where we just create these things. It's always about communication and for the residents to have a say of what we like there. Obviously, I've worked in recreation and parks. I do like to see open space, a little bit of everything, and to have it cover itself, the cost cover itself. But for BKK, my options are always open, and I like to always have the community involved. Thank you.
Are we allowed to agree with each other? I really I agree with a lot of what Roger just said. We're subsidizing a business, but we're contractually obligated, and we're just sort of stuck. And I wish we could find somebody that would buy it and buy our contract and take us out of it, because I don't like big league dreams, and we're subsidizing a business, like he said, and I don't like it, but we're just stuck with it. So perhaps other parts of the property could be useful for solar farms producing electricity. If we could find investors for such a thing, I don't know. I'm surprised by this question. So, but development needs to honor best public use policies, and if it makes money, that's great. If it adds to our tax base, that's great too. But it has to provide a clear public benefit. And I haven't thought about this question, and I don't think I can do a full 3-minute tap dance, but I'd have to be elected and see what develops. But as I said, development has to honor, it has to be profitable, and it has to serve public needs. It has to be something our community needs and wants. A solar farm might have CEQA problems. I don't know. It might be ugly, and maybe that's not feasible, but I'm just introducing that as a possible good use for the remainder, generating electricity, the remainder of the property. Thank you.
One of the other things that was left over from previous councils is a $9 million bond that's being paid for by taxpayers for a golf course that, of course, does not exist up there. And so we are paying that every year. We have to pay on that bond. So we have a responsibility to pay that back. What I see happening in BKK is it's going to take whatever it is, it's going to take several years, and there's going to be all kinds of public meetings about it, because you have all the environmental issues. The city has responsibilities as far as several environmental issues up there. There's going to be open space, there's going to be trails, there's going to be something. Of course, there's a proposal now that would do a hotel and some other things. I could see a hotel working up there with Big League Dreams, find some way to keep the Big League Dream people that go there, you know, there and spending money and being able to service them. I can see that as a possibility. But whatever's going to happen, it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of meetings. And that's just the reality. There's going to be no quick, sudden development up there that it just can't take place because of the environmental things that have to go on. Again, one of the other things is we're talking about the land around the BKK landfill, not the toxic part of it. We're talking about the land around it as far as being developed. And I remember when the trucks were lined up there on Azusa, to go up to BKK. I remember that. And of course, BKK used to sponsor everything in West Covina. They sponsored every single event. And this is a good example. If we had districts then, BKK might still be open. Because those districts are the ones that swung the council on the particular time. If you packed all those voters into one district, BKK still might be open, and we wouldn't be talking about this. But the reality is, lots of meetings. There's going to be lots of different ideas, and we have to see where the Singapore project goes that they're talking. We have to see where they're doing with the environmental clearance, because that's very important, and that includes federal, state agencies, as well as not just the city council. So our role is going to be dealing with zoning, and we have to sell it, of course, at some point, or how we're going to do that whole land deal. That's our role, and we'll have a big role in that. But again, there's going to be lots of steps before that happens. Years. It's going to be years before it happens.
Okay, I want to honor the question that shows up on this card, but the question does make a couple of assertions, and I want to make it clear that we don't have to I apologize. Okay, somebody else needs to.
You're doing fine.
Okay, no problem. So I remember being a 14-year-old in West Covina, and I do recall Councilmember Hernandez being a very strong advocate in making sure the residents knew what was occurring at the BKK landfill. And because of that, I have since been knowledgeable what's occurring up there, and I believe the residents' input, the majority of residents in our city haven't been informed. I don't think they know that the majority, there's going to be a horse track up there. There's going to be a hotel. There's a lot of things that are going to be up there, and I think the residents of West Covina need to be more informed about what's going up there. And I think that if we work together and make a change, and we work with the residents to get input from, that we'll be able to make the best possible future for that landfill. And I want people to know that West Covina is open for business. I will work to ensure startups and small businesses have the resources they need to grow and expand in our city. I'll work to bring new developments that benefit the community and create more live work, play, and opportunities. I'll also create partnerships with our local high schools and colleges to expand apprenticeships and internships programs and encourage entrepreneurship, because by working together, we can make a change in our city. And thank you for the great question.
Again, my apologies. It's a pretty straightforward task you'd think I should be able to manage. So the next question, as I started to say, makes a couple of assertions. We don't have to assume the assertions. The basis of the question is, how will you balance the city budget? The assertions are these. The city balanced the budget last year by using one-time money. Most of that money is now gone, and the city may be facing an $8 million deficit on next year's budget. But I want to return to the basic question, that is, how will you balance the budget in terms of your understanding of where the city is right now? And we'll start with Ms. Lopez.
Thank you. When I hear the budget, I think of budgeting my household, priorities, the needs and the wants. I know we do spend a lot of things that's unnecessary in the city, and we actually need to cut those costs. This is where fiscal responsibility comes in and the transparency. Believe it or not, the residents actually, I've been hearing a lot of ideas with the residents and so forth, and we have a few accounting and specialty with the budget, and I'd love for them to be involved to get those and see those numbers so that they have a say. But with the budget, it's pretty much cutting expenses and working within our budget. Also partnering up with organizations and so forth to save costs or any grants that can be received. It's just pretty much figuring out where our priorities lie, cutting our budget, and moving forward from there, and having our residents be involved. Thank you.
This is my favorite question. You could go to YouTube already, and I've gotten at least 30 or 35 minutes of testimony. Over half of the budget hearings. You could go to. I'm already on the record on this issue, and as I said, this is one of the reasons why I filed, because of we're in the middle of a fiscal emergency, and the general public's not aware of it. Everything's been prettied up for the election, and the newspaper, the sky is falling articles will probably hit after the election. But things are really bad, and my candidate statement, which is unpublished, goes into a lot of the potential solutions that I've raised. Perhaps we could close the fire stations in West Covina, all of them, but leave one. I mean, one day a week, one would be closed and the other 4 fire stations cover. That would save $3 million a year if the 4 open stations would cover, and just rotate closures. Separating the fire department from the paramedics would, I believe, to be cost effective. The paramedics can be paramedics, and I don't think those 2 agencies, it's not cost effective to have them joined at the hip. Further, my statement mentions a careful stewardship of pension and medical benefits programs, reduce our $250 billion indebtedness gradually, proactive budgeting, pay-as-you-go, set spending priorities, this is a good one. Across the board furloughs, even police middle management. People don't like to hear that word furlough, but it would save a lot of money, and business as usual isn't cutting it. I mean, we're in a deep hole, and we've spent 20 years getting to where we're at, and it's not sustainable, and something's going to happen. One of my basis of my campaign is no new taxes. Oh, that wasn't a red yet.
That was like 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds. I've got 30 seconds. Okay. Okay. Well, taxes aren't the answer. Increased taxes is not the answer. What we have to do is contain our expenditures, and no council in the past has adequately accomplished that.
I think Bill Roberts and I have a different definition of prettying up for the election. The articles in the Tribune, I think we have a different definition. The budget stuff, there's lots of different factors involved, and anyone that tells you they got a silver bullet for this stuff isn't telling the truth. The reality is we do have a tendency in this city to start figuring out how to nickel and dime residents when the budget comes around. You're going to have a bunch of new fees that were adopted. Nobody knows about them because it was done during the budget process, and the reason we're doing them is all about the revenue. We never have a discussion whether or not it's good public policy, if it's something that should be done, or how it should be structured. It's about we got to approve it by June 30th. Of course, we didn't do it this time, June 30th, in order for the budget to be adopted. And that's a problem, because the residents don't need to be nickel and dimed and stuff. We don't need to come up with reasons to find a way to make you pay another fee or a tax. And that's what that happens in the budgeting. I can tell you that I think if I wasn't on the council right now, you'd be voted on 2 different tax increases, if not 3, in November as well, because of the way that those things went, the way those votes went. And I'd like to hear where everybody else stands on those kinds of things. I know where Bill is. But I do think we have to look and focus on the spending part of it. And it is about priorities. You know, every candidate runs and say they want to put public safety first. And then that turns out to be the first place they want to cut, because that's where a lot of money is. And we actually had one council member say that they think Easter egg hunts are more important than public safety. I don't think that way. I don't think they are more important than public safety. So we need to make sure we fund our public safety. We don't do zero-based budgeting. We just try to figure out how to tinker with the numbers to get them around. And that's why I voted against the last few budgets, because the way we did it, it was haphazard, and it wasn't focused on actually what's good for the city long-term. It is about the short-term stuff, and that's a problem. And so as a council member, I voted against more spending than any other council member. And I'll continue to do that when we have ideas that just don't make sense to spend money on when we don't need to. And I will try to make sure that we keep our hands out of your pockets, because that's what the council's all about many times. So that's me in a nutshell. I'll keep my hands off your pockets and try to make sure we focus on public safety and other services that we need to provide.
Mr. Gutierrez, I haven't forgotten you this time, but I do want to remind you, you've all watched presidential debates, right? And the moderator always says, you gotta be quiet. And I'm just going to ask everybody to do your very best not to make any kind of responsive ejaculation.
Well, I believe in ensuring more accountability from City Hall. It's no secret that our city has been guilty of mismanagement. Things need to change, and we need more accountability and transparency. That starts with new leadership, just like I did for the California State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'll focus on making sure you know where your tax dollars are being spent. I want our residents to be more involved in public discussions and aware of our plans for our city. Because by working together with the residents, we'll be able to make a change. Because at the end of the day, the residents are the bosses who elect those to office. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a stab at this question. It's a very important question, and it's one that should be answered honestly. There isn't a silver bullet that was mentioned earlier. This is an issue. The balancing of the budget has been one that's been going on since my first day on the city council, and it was going on before then. This city council needs to give very clear direction about objectives that the public wants to see adhered to. We have so much potential in West Covina. I can give you a couple examples right now. We have blighted shopping centers that are very underperforming. When I was on city council, we had the opportunity to bring a Costco to the Kmart site. You've all driven and know where that site is at now. But because of politics and pettiness, the Costco is not here today. I'll push hard to bring big box elements to West Covina. Should a Costco still be interested, or a like company, a business that could generate the $2 million new revenue, I'm going to push for that. What do we see on a daily basis every morning and every evening? We see the I-10 corridor, it's packed. It is packed and packed and packed. There's many people that are making their way from Riverside, San Bernardino County, Inland Empire. They're making their way to the office buildings in the downtown area. West Covina is a central hub for a new kind of development. About a month ago, I was sitting with the city manager of Santa Monica. I asked him, Mr. Cole, tell me, how did you revitalize the downtown Pasadena area? He was a former mayor of Pasadena. Sorry, I kind of omitted that. He said, Roger, we didn't start with the businesses, with the destination and retail shops and restaurants. We started by actually bringing in the infrastructure. We brought in the office buildings for the professional activity. Because what that did is it stimulated the wants and the needs for the daytime use for the restaurants, kind of restaurants that 70% plus of residents of West Covina are driving out of town to access, whether it's in Brea or Pasadena. We could do that here because we have the critical mass of transports moving through here. And lastly, I'm going to be very straight up with you. We have to have a conversation with you as a public about where we're at with our revenues. We can't keep pretending that everything is all pretty and dandy. We got to show you as residents where we're at with our revenues, comparatively speaking, with other full-service cities. We have the Cadillac plan here. We have our own police department. We have our own fire department. That costs more than having more of the basic, affordable county sheriff's department services and county fire department services. So if we as residents want that, we as council need to ask you, the residents, do you want to keep the Cadillac plan? It costs a little bit more. And if you don't want the Cadillac plan, then we go to county services. I, for one, vote to keep independent services here, local control of our own police and fire services. But when we have them, we have to fund them appropriately. I own a condo here in West Covina. Now, we can cut all the HOA fees in half. But what does that mean in terms of services? The lawn mowing, the painting, the maintenance, the care for these facilities. We're all in it together. That's my mentality. We have to work together. So we got to do it in a mix. So let's work together on that.
Thanks. I'm not changing the rules, and of course the 3-minute time limits are still in place, but this question is one that could be answered in a fairly short compass, and so if folks choose to answer succinctly and give us more chance to move on to other questions, I'd be grateful. I believe we're starting with Mr. Robinson. The question is, what businesses have contributed to your campaign?
That's an easy one. None. I'm not endorsed. I'm not endorsed by anybody. And actually, that might not be a bad thing. Think about what it means if the police union or the fire department is endorsing your candidacy. You know, what did you give them in return? I'm not endorsed by anybody, and all I need is your support. So that's about as succinct as I can be. No business has contributed to my campaign.
I haven't received any donations from any businesses, but I'll be happy to take them. And I'll tell you why, and that's because in order to get your message out, you have to have money. And if you think a council member can be bought for $500, you shouldn't be voting for him in the first place. That's the limit we have here. You shouldn't be voting for him. There's a pastor that was on the city council in San Diego, Pastor Stevens. He passed away, and I think that was his name. And he did the ordinance restricting strip clubs. And he's African American. And some strip clubs sent him some money during the campaign. And he cashed those checks in the campaign. And so they did a press conference about how he took money from the strip clubs. They thought they were really clever. And the press asked him about it, and he said, that's their problem. He'd take money from the Klan. He didn't care. And I was like, it was the funniest thing, but it's true. So, but I haven't taken any money from businesses. I have no problem taking money from people. And and I can tell you, I have voted against people that have given money to me. I voted against something they particularly wanted. I voted against that. And you have to have people that are willing to do that. And like I said, if you think they're bought for $500, you shouldn't vote for them anyways.
Mr. Gutierrez.
I have received no corporation donations. I have funded my own campaign. I did receive one donation from a law office in Santa Monica, and no one locally, no businesses locally. I just had one donation, $500 from a law office in Santa Monica. But besides that, I am fully funding my campaign. I have the blessing to have overcome many challenges in life and to currently serve as the Vice President of External Affairs for Dow Records for Sony Latin Music. I have the opportunity to fund my own campaign.
To this extent, I have not solicited any contributions from any local businesses or businesses throughout the state. I will, however, tell you that when I ended my time in the California legislature, I had 2 accounts that had resources. Undoubtedly, though, there are limits here in West Covina. So as the monies were sitting in an account, I made sure that there were some funds that were transferred from a previous account that was closed. And those accounts included contributions from groups that represent everyday working people in California and some businesses up and down the state of California. But I have not solicited any contributions in this particular race in the last year or so. So I'd have to go back and actually look at the specific contribution amounts that were transferred, but I can tell you I have not solicited anything as I opened this city council campaign. I did a money transfer from a previous campaign account.
Actually, you know, running this campaign, I actually noticed that those who run for city council are usually retired or wealthy. And I'm neither. And so far, businesses, I haven't received businesses. I've received small contributions from residents, people, family, friends, and those add up. And I do want to thank you for those who did contribute. I am more than welcome, you know, you're more than welcome to contribute even further. You know, at work, one of the firemen, actually he knows me and I've worked with the community so forth, so he was like my largest contribution from Los Angeles Fire Department, you know, because he wanted to see good things happen. He sees what I do at my parks, and he says, I know you'll do a great job in the city where you work at. So far, no businesses yet. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is, what should the city do to address homelessness in as specific terms as you can?
The homeless problem in the state of California is a mess, and there's all kinds of different reasons for it, and I won't go into it. You know, there's some people that think there's only certain kinds of homeless, 3 kinds or whatever. Every homeless person is different. And I know that from when I was chair of our church welfare committee, and we were helping a couple people in particular dealing with homelessness and addiction. And, you know, that's one part of it, but there's so many different parts. Specifically, I can tell you what we have been trying to do. We've been contributing to some of the efforts like the East San Gabriel Valley Coalition of the Homeless, Corey's Kitchen, some of the feeding, some of those things we've donated through our CDBG funding, which is funding from the federal government. A couple years ago, you know, we started this effort with the bicycle team, that we have bicycle officers that would be able to go to park and really get to know the homeless on a regular basis and figure out and try to get them services. And in fact, you can go to our website if you're looking for ways that you can get services to people that are homeless. That's on our website, and you can do that. And that's something that's important. You know, there were homeless people here when my whole life, but it's never been to this degree. You know, I think we have to understand that this is not a new problem. I just read an article, and Skid Row used to be called Hobo's Corner in 1900. So, I mean, that's something that's been there for a long, long time. And government has exacerbated that problem with the policies that have been implemented, sometimes in Sacramento, have made those problems worse and have made it harder to get help to people, even those that want it. And I don't think government by itself will end up being the solution to homelessness. The things that I've seen effective are, I think we got to get the faith community more involved, because those are things that I have seen actually in the first missions, you know, were you know, faith-based. And those are the things, you know, you have to make that connection to an individual. You can't just have like some public policy that's going to solve it all. It won't work. At the same time, we have to protect our residents. for some of the issues that come with that. And we can't do what other places do. Some cities, have opened up their parks, 24 hours, in order to serve homeless people. We can't do that in West Covina. I don't think we have the resources to be able to do that kind of stuff. But so we've done the bike team. We put together a plan. As you know, Measure H, the county has all this money that you are giving them through your taxes. They are not giving it back to the cities, and they're not doing it proportionally. I can tell you when I was on the COG, started the fight with them about that because the first thing they spent money on was little bags and trinkets and stuff promoting themselves. And I said, unless you're giving those to homeless, I don't see what good it's going to do if that's going to do. And we've been somewhat successful in getting them to raise the amount of money that they're giving for cities for the plans. But to be honest, they're taking all that money and they're going to be spending it out of that on different things. One other issue that we need to deal with here in West Covina is affordable housing. And we haven't done a good job in that. This council has kept the government art fee that developments have to pay. That adds $10,000 to the cost of a single family residence. There's lots of things we can do to make that better.
That's a great question, and one of the top concerns of the residents I speak to while campaigning. Our city had a 75% increase in homelessness this year, with more people finding themselves homeless or in the brink. It is our responsibility to help. The challenge is that as long as we have a budget deficit, we won't be able to fund the programs we need. I will work with federal, state, and county leaders to ensure our city is receiving our fair share of funding to combat the homeless issue in our city. I will also focus on building more affordable housing and creating pathways to home ownership in our city. I believe our options need to be on the table and be creative in our approach, whether that means allowing granny flats to be built or bringing more mixed-use developments to our city. But most importantly, we must work with the residents of West Covina to develop plans that meet and address this issue. We need to work with county and city officials and the county and federal officials to get more funding to deal with the increased homeless issue in our city. I believe that we can work with Foothill Transit, Metro to create a token program. So instead of not only of our police officers giving a pamphlet of where our local shelters are at, there'll be a way for them to transport themselves to those shelters. And it will be my commitment to fix this issue. So thank you.
Homelessness is a significant social quagmire that we've been facing as a society since before I was born. Undoubtedly, it's been on a grow, and so much of it is not because of consequences relative to something that occurred a year or two ago, but it has been a burgeoning problem due to a myriad of reasons that we have to attack on multiple fronts. When you look at the homeless population in the San Gabriel Valley, we know that a high percentage of them are former men and women of service. And we know that there's a huge overlap, about a 90% overlap of mental illness with those men and women of service that find themselves homeless. I'll do what I've done over the years, work with other governmental agencies to hold them accountable to do their part. The feds need to stand up and do right by our vets. They haven't done it. Well, this San Gabriel Valley is home to 2.3 million inhabitants. We ought to have a VA. We need city council members that will put the kind of pressure on our federal representatives to bring a VA hospital, not a little satellite office, but a VA hospital to help properly care for our vets. But the problems with the vets, as it is for problems with those that are homeless due to drug addiction or through difficult economic or lack of economic opportunities, it starts from a root. We see that the growing inequity between the 1% and the everyday working men and women. The middle class is on a decline. I don't think anybody can debate that. We need to put pressure that on our federal government and our state government that we have a baseline standard on what a job means and what it looks like. If you work 40 hours a week, you shouldn't have a problem. No citizen should have a problem having a basic roof over the head and the ability to put food on the table and let's not forget healthcare. If you're working your hours, too many people now are working two, three jobs just to keep themselves afloat, and still not able to keep with the ability to make ends meet. So this is a multi-pronged issue. We have to work more collaboratively and more forcefully with our feds, our state, our county government. The county has, because the voters of LA County have voted to support greater resources for our homeless population, we have to make sure that the county, as Mike Spence has mentioned, that we're getting our fair share here in West Covina. I have some experience in doing that. We have the Measure B trauma measure that was passed in 2002. I was a legislator that said, hey, we're San Gabriel Valley, we're putting in $50 million. Reports, I asked for the audit in Sacramento to audit where those monies were coming from or where they were going. And guess what? We were only getting, according to the audit, $500,000 to $600,000 of a $50 million input that we were doing. But through pushing and prodding, we now have a trauma center here in San Gabriel Valley that serves San Gabriel Valley. We need to continue doing more of that.
I'm actually on the homeless subcommittee in our commission, and I can speak from this on all angles. At my parks, homeless are there, and at the parks that I have worked at, I have successfully reduced the homeless at my parks. But what I say that I speak on all aspects on this. When my father died when I was 5 years old, we had financial hardships, and we were homeless for a moment, staying at the Women and Children's Shelter. So that I've experienced homeless on one side, and then the other side I've worked with the homeless. So at every park that I work at, they're there. And I now categorize them in 3 different categories. The first one, of course, are those that are, have a hard time, they lost of something, and who wants the help. And these people, ironically, are embarrassed to show or tell you that they're homeless. And being one of them, you don't want them to know, but they do need the help, and I've helped a few of those. And we partner up with organizations that's out there. I know one of them is LASA and other organizations. The other second type of homeless is they don't want the help, but they're not a nuisance to the community. They actually work with us, we work with each other. So if I would tell them I have a sports banquet outside, the benches and everything, they'll work with me and they'll, okay, sure, no problem, I'll clean up, and then I'll go ahead and come back. The third type of homeless is the vagrant types, who disregards the law, doesn't care, leaves up nests, needles, drugs, everything. These vagrant types we don't want in our city. Therefore, each homeless is handled accordingly, depending on the type. And I'd like to continue the partnership. I know we have the HOPE team, and I'd like to continue the partnership with, I've worked with the Homeless Initiative and certain groups that we can partner up. As for the vagrant types, I'd like to increase enforcements, which is why I'd like that increase of fire and police, because they're the ones that we call upon when these things occur. Also, I do understand that the homeless have rights, but us residents, we also have rights too. It shouldn't be threatened. It shouldn't threaten our health, safety, and cleanliness. So, thank you.
Well, there's a city website that deals with, it has materials and resources that hasn't been mentioned yet, so the City of West Covina website. Being poor and homeless isn't illegal. And of course we have to honor existing law. I believe the police and fire department in West Covina are doing everything that's possible right now. I think, I read in the newspaper that the city of West Covina spent $4.86 million a few years ago to deal with the homeless problem, and during the time that we were spending that money dealing with the problem, I think our homeless rate doubled. I think the count for homeless in West Covina is between 270 to 340 and the trend is up. I think Pomona has has in the neighborhood of 700 to 900. There are interfaith organizations that could help with this problem, but think about this: the more services you provide in a community to the homeless population, it could be a magnet and it would draw more homeless. So this is a very complicated problem, and I don't think the city of West Covina can solve it, to be honest. There's too many facets. We need to collaborate with all levels of government to prevent duplications of services. So if we're just paying attention to other levels of government and tackling the problem in a smart way, we can help ourselves. I think Sacred Heart's Church on Workman had a memorial service for the homeless 2 years ago, and I don't know what was accomplished by that, but the community has been active, and we've been trying to deal with it. But I think collecting more money isn't going to help us. It might actually hurt. But at least the Sacred Heart Church and I think other faith-based organizations have been trying to deal with this. Perhaps we could have computers in our city library and maybe a staff member dedicated to helping people that need help, provide resources and collect information to get people what they need. But I'm not an expert on this problem, and I don't really know what to do. Sorry.
Okay, I'm told that the lights go out at 8:30 or thereabouts, and so we have just time for 3-minute closing statements from each of the candidates. I'd ask you in your closing statement to tell the audience what you'd feel needed your attention most immediately in terms of coming onto the council should you be elected. So 3-minute statements. We'll start again with Mr. Gutierrez.
Great. Well, what concerned me was over $3.5 million cut from our police and fire services, the increase in homeless issues, and our residents being left in the dark where no input or not getting the opportunity to be part of our city's process, that they're uninformed, that there's been too many concerns from our residents that they're ignored or the city services they're not getting the proper city services they need. And it will be my commitment to hire more police officers and more firefighters. It'll be my commitment to solve the homeless issue in our city by working together with the residents, with city and county and federal officials. And I believe that we'll be able to make a change in our city because we have the power to make a change if we work together. And it'll be my commitment to do that change in our city. The people of West Covina will be my boss if I'm elected to office. And I ask for your vote on November 6th so we can make a change and make our city and put it back on track. Thank you so much.
We are definitely at a time where we need experience to bring our city out of this kind of a downward spiral economically. I have demonstrated over the years that I have the ability to bring resources back, whether it was taking on the County of Los Angeles when we weren't getting our share of emergency room and trauma center dollars. This region, we pay taxes. We weren't getting our fair share, but we do have a trauma center now, and I'm proud of the fact that I led the fight on that. Here in West Covina, there was $14 million of mismanagement. I'm proud that I worked with the new city council here in asking for the audit of the city, and then took action after the audit was completed. The audit revealed $14 million of mismanagement, and but there wasn't anything that we could do to prosecute it because it was a 1-year statute of limitations. I am the author of the law that said that statute needed to be extended. It's now a 3-year statute to hold government corruption accountable. We need representatives on all representatives of the city council that can get the job done. I'm one that knows how to pick up the phone and knows who to call. I can engage engage Sacramento to make sure that we're drawing down the resources that we need. I will work closely with the county officials to make sure that we're getting our fair share here in West Covina, as I've demonstrated time and time again in the past. We need to, I'm committed very much so to lean on my experience on how we better run a city, how do we better run a government in a way that's accountable to you, but that brings also the creativity, the mindset that generates resources we need. We can close this deficit. I can point to work that I pushed for here in West Covina that has generated more than $3 million because I pushed when people were saying no. The ambulance transport service, our own staff budget report says here that's generating for this next fiscal year $2.8 million. I tried 3 times to get on the agenda, and finally on the 3rd time we got an agenda. That represents a significant chunk of the budget. When the police chief here in West Covina approached me and said asset forfeiture was going to be cut statewide, and it was going to impact West Covina. I fought hard to make sure what was looking like a bulldozer moving through the legislature, unanimous at every committee and every in the Senate floor. I stopped it on the Assembly floor because of know-how, because of relationships and understanding the significance. And the asset forfeiture money for West Covina is 1% of the budget. That combined with the ambulance transport, you're talking about more than 3% of the city's budget was something that I had to not only fight hard for, but today the city's budget is better off for it. I want to put that kind of thinking back to this dais and to be as proactive as possible and diligent to make sure that you draw down from my experience that you as voters have given me to be able to bring the resources that we can in the planning and the maximizing of West Covina's potential to get it right for our voters and our services.
Well, obviously, I'm not your polished, seasoned politician, but you've had experienced politicians, and what has that got for you? I bring in a fresh start, a fresh perspective, different attitude, minus the games, the negativity, the drama. You can be assured that I have the residents' best interest in mind, not mine or others. It's your best interest. I just want to remind you that an effective council member should be able to work with other council members, the community, the schools, the different organizations, and just be able to work with any type of people. And I am able to do that. I've been doing that for years, and I will continue to do that for as long as I live. I don't, I may not always have the answers at the moment, but guaranteed I will do my due diligence in researching and getting the information, and I will have the solutions after. My actions are stronger than words, but you need to allow me to show you. If you want positive changes, allow me to implement those changes, because I will continue fighting for our residents that I'm doing currently, and for our children and the children's future. It would be my honor to serve you as a city council, and all I humbly ask is for your vote that makes this difference by mail ballot or on November 6th. So I do thank you. Thank you for being here again, and I believe that together as a group, we could make West Covina a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
We need a new vision, a new mindset, and a changed course in West Covina. The old policy has failed, and we're primed to be confronted with endless rounds of tax increase proposals. The architect and the engineer of the current mess are sitting here right in the days right now. We have council members that have experience, and maybe experience isn't what we need right here, maybe. I challenge the experienced people to present specific solutions to our current problems. Probably West Covina is run by the 9 labor bargaining units, not the city council. My motto is no new taxes. The only real solution is to curtail spending, something the council has been unwilling to do so far. But if you choose to empower yourself, I'd appreciate your support as your representative. I have, for people in Division 2, this is not going to be published in the voting literature, but what I believe some of the solutions are presented. You can come up and get a flyer after the meeting. But as I said, things have been prettied up for the election, but it's taken at least 20 years to dig ourselves into such a deep hole, fiscal hole that we're in right now. And it's going to take time and patience and skill and luck to work our way out of this situation without raising taxes. The public and the media, after the election, the sky will be falling, and we'll have a better picture than we have right now of our fiscal OPEB and PERS liabilities. It's a nightmare. Knowledgeable people have mentioned bankruptcy as a realistic possibility. Bankruptcy hurts everybody and must be avoided at all costs. We have a fiscal emergency which has so far been minimized successfully. But this audience, you folks know more than most West Covina residents, and you're more aware of what's going on. To improve our best practices situation, I already made 2 recommendations on the record. First, conduct a special fraud audit to study the individual credit card transaction patterns of the 11 department head city credit card holders, ensuring spending meets best policy guidelines to verify that current mismanagement of City Hall does not include elements of fraud.
Mr. Robinson, I'm afraid your time's up.
My phone number is 626-644-0408, and you can reach me there, you can text me, or you can email me at westcovina@mikespence.com, because I'm Mike Spence. I think it is important that we have an honest discussion about transparency and about what goes on at City Hall. And so if you have a question, if you think you're not getting a service, give me a call. I've always been that way. And I'm willing to take things up that nobody else is. And I've made change because of it, because I've been able to convince council members, some of them who don't like me, to do it. That's how we got the HOPE team. That's how we were able to finally change the zoning in here, because this district's going to get almost all the housing shoved into it based on the general plan. You know, it's easy to say, you know, to form a commission and give yourself a title and then claim that you're going to do something about it. But I do think actions speak louder than words. And on the city council, I do action. That's what I do. I agendize things at the state level that we need to deal with, whether it's reversing things like AB 109 and Prop 47 and 57, which we need to do, whether it's doing other things with the CalPERS, supporting different bills that trying to reform. That's a statewide problem, a statewide system. I'm going to do it. That's what I do. I fight, I get involved, I'm active, and I study and do the homework to make sure it's done. And if you have something you want to say to me, please say it. I'll be happy to talk to you and incorporate it if possible and if it makes sense. Some things can't be done, you know, and I'm sorry about that. There's lots of people that have great ideas, and, you know, sometimes the Supreme Court or somebody won't let them do it, and we can't do that. But we can have a city like the one that I grew up in, where kids can feel safe going to the parks, where we can have community togetherness, where we can have freedom from intervention from a city government that is intervening in all kinds of different aspects of our lives and is no longer business friendly. I'll tell you, that's our biggest problem. We're no longer business friendly. We've tacked on so many fees and so many different things on new businesses here. You know, when I go out, like I met with Portos, we've met with different people trying to bring them in here, you know, and then the following year, their fees go up again. Another $30,000 they got to pay to come here. In fact, every business is going to get an inspection from us every year now. Woo! And you're going to get a bill too. So we're going to show up at every business and give them a bill and an inspection. And that's a great way to be business friendly, isn't it? But we just adopted that in the last budget. Three other council members did that. You know, I want government to leave us alone as much as possible, but protect us from those things that need to be protected from. That's what our role is. That's what our goal should be. And we need to do that as fiscally responsible as possible, given all the problems that we have. But if you want action, I'm your guy. I'm the only taxpayer advocate on the ballot. That has to be approved by the Secretary of State. You got to be able to prove it, and I've been able to do that. And so please remember to vote for Mike Spence. Again, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be. Anyone that does, that's their imperfection. And so, I'm willing to work hard, and I'm willing to do what's necessary to get the job done. So I'll fight for you. I got your back. I really do. Mike Spence for City Council.
Thanks. Okay, I have 3 requests. The first is that you continue to demonstrate what you've demonstrated tonight, and that is that you're going to pay attention to this election. You could do that in part by coming back on the 26th and on the 10th of October when the other district candidates will be here, whether you're in that voting district or not. That you should talk to friends and neighbors and get them involved in the same way that you've become involved. That's the first thing. The second thing is I hope you'll join me in thanking the West Covina Improvement Association for sponsoring these forums. We'll do that now.
And it is time for accolades. Thank you so much, candidates, for sharing with us your solutions, your ideas, and your knowledge. Thank you to our fearless leader. We get him back again 2 more times. And thank all of you for coming. We want to see you and fill up more of the seats the next time around. Have a good evening. And the city, it needs to be thanked also. They provided this room, they provided all the equipment, and we need to thank them.